Hi, my name is Brian Pham, and welcome to the first edition of Poetry Prose. Today, we're going to be reading The Death of Santa Claus by Charles Harper Webb. Born in 1938, Webb is an American poet. He currently teaches at California State University in Long Beach. Now let's get into it. He's had the chest pains for weeks, but doctors don't make house calls to the North Pole. He's let his Blue Cross lapse. Blood tests make him faint. Hospital gowns always flap open. Waiting rooms upset his stomach, and it's only indigestion anyways, he thinks. Until, feeding the reindeer, he feels as if a monster fist has grabbed his heart and won't stop squeezing. He can't breathe, and the beautiful white world he loves goes black. And he drops on his jelly belly in the snow, and Miss His Claus tears out of the toy factory wailing, and the elves wring their little hands, and Rudolph's nose blinks like a sad ambulance light. And in a tract house in Houston, Texas, I'm 8, telling my mom that stupid kids at school say Santa's a big fake, and she sits with me on a purple flowered couch and takes my hand, tears in her throat, the terrible news rising in her eyes. I personally connected with this poem because the poem is about growing up and leaving your childhood innocence behind. As a high school senior about to turn 18, I'm also growing up and getting ready to leave my childhood behind. Reading this poem reminded me of when I was in second grade, and my friends and I debated over whether or not Santa was real. I remember being on the Santa was real team. I was also reminded of one Christmas Eve where I stayed up and hid behind our living room couch to try and catch Santa in the act. Instead of seeing Santa Claus, I saw my dad instead, putting presents behind the Christmas tree, and I remember thinking I was so cool for catching him in the act. One of the elements that made this poem well written was how despairing and distressing the situation was. Charles Harper Webb was able to turn something as inevitable and as part of life, like a child learning Santa isn't real, into a tragedy. Webb uses similes and hyperbole to emphasize the despair and darkness in the poem. The line, "He feels as if a monster's fist has grabbed his heart and won't stop squeezing," is an excellent example of simile by comparing the heart attack Santa has to a monster's fist grabbing his heart, conveying the intensity of the pain. Another great example of the simile is the line, "Rudolph's nose blinks like a sad ambulance light." This simile compares Rudolph's nose to an ambulance, and ambulances are often connected with someone in pain or dying, which emphasizes the distressing situation. Similes are not the only types of figurative language used in the poem. Webb uses hyperboles in the line, "Mrs. Claus tears out the toy factory wailing," to intensify the emotional impact of the scene. Another element that made this poem well written is his word choice. Webb's diction is purposeful and conveys a message in the limited word he uses. My favorite example of this is the line, "The beautiful white world he loves goes black." The personification of the world adds to the sense of despair and darkness in the scene. Webb also utilizes antitheses, contrasting the beautiful white world and the death's black. Despite having a limited number of words, Webb effectively incorporates many types of symbolism, which gives a deeper meaning to the poem. An example of one of his symbolism is the line, "On our purple flowered couch." The purple flowered couch could be representative of comfort and safety, contrasting with the chaos and tragedy described in the rest of the poem. The death of Santa Claus can mean different things to different people. In a literal sense, the poem is about Santa Claus dying and an 8-year-old learning that Santa is not real. However, the deeper meaning and the theme of this poem is the fragility and inevitable ending of a person's childhood or innocence. A child's innocence is often fragile and will almost always end. This has been Poetry Prose. I'm your host, Brian Pham, and thank you for listening. We'll see you next time. Goodbye.